message for today is entitled, How to Deactivate Your Willie Chip. How to deactivate your Willie Lynch chip. Now, some of you here might not know who Willie Lynch was. So let me get right into the meat of this today, and I trust that you will take notes, as the brother just said, write down, because I want to give you something to think about today. There was a man in 1832 who was a state official for the state of Virginia. His name was Henry Berry. And Henry Berry said in the Virginia House of Delegates, and I quote him, here's what he said, talking about Africans or Negroes, or what they really called us back then was Negroes. And this is what he said: "We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light might enter the Negro's minds. If we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would then be on a level with the beasts of the field, and we would be safe." I am not certain that we would not do it if we could find out the process, and that on the plea of necessity. Again, we're talking about a state senator in Virginia who made that statement before the House of Delegates in 1832. Something about Virginia. There's a city in Virginia called Lynchburg. And that's where Jerry Falwell is from, y'all. Where Liberty Baptist College is from. Lynchburg, Virginia. There's a reason why it's called Lynchburg, Virginia in 2002. Not just because they lynched Africans there, but in honor of a man named Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch there in Virginia, and he said these words, if you will allow me to read his speech to you. But you need to understand what his speech was, all right? So you know how to deactivate your Willie Lynch chip, because brothers and sisters, everybody born in this country, especially every African born in this country, is implanted with the Willie Lynch chip before they even leave the womb. Here's what he said: "Greetings, gentlemen, I greet you here on the bank of the James River in the year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for controlling slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south of the James River, which by the way is named in honor of our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasion. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple of miles back. You are losing valuable stock by hangings. You are having uprisings. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit. You suffer occasional fires. Your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are? I do not need to elaborate on them. You know what they are. I'm not here to enumerate your problems. I'm here to introduce you to a method of solving them. I have here in my bag a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or an overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. Then there is intelligence, size, sex, sizes of plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley or on a hill, east, west, north, south, whether they have fine hair or whether they have coarse hair, whether they are tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I want to assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slaves are receiving this indoctrination on my plantation, and if yours receive this indoctrination, they will carry it on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male against the young black male. The young black male against the old black male. You must use dark-skinned slaves against light-skinned slaves, and light-skinned slaves versus dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male against the female. You must also have your white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on only us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. For if used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful of each other. Thank you, gentlemen. And that's the end of his speech. Like I said, brothers and sisters, today's message is how to deactivate your Willie Lynch chip. Because what I just read here is all a part of the social engineering that we as Africans grew under, this Willie Lynch syndrome that literally has us as Africans hating each other, not trusting each other, the first to talk about each other and put each other down, the first to laugh at each other. Y'all understand what I'm saying? You see, brothers and sisters, it was in the interest and business of the slaveholders to study the nature of the slaves with a view to the results that they wanted to achieve through slavery. Conscious of the injustices and the wrongs that they were perpetuating upon the slaves every hour of every day, they were concerned about what would happen if these slaves rose up in retribution. So they began to study these slaves. They studied their facial response. They studied their body language. They studied the tonality of their voice when they communicated to see if they were about to experience an uprising. If we are going to deactivate our Willie Lynch chip, brothers and sisters, we must, I re-emphasize that, we must understand the Europeans or the Anglo-Saxons or the Caucasoids, whatever word you want to use. We must understand their ideas and their methods for ensuring the perpetuation of a master-slave relationship. Am I talking too heavy for y'all? Y'all sure? All right. I was going to say, hold on, I'm going to talk heavier. How was the Willie Lynch chip installed in the psyche of the African in the first place? Think about that. We have more Africans today in the year 2002 who are absolutely in complete denial of the reality of racism. I mean, absolute denial. They'll tell you in a minute, oh, that stuff is in the past. I mean, straight up stupid denial that racism is alive and well. In St. Louis, in this country, and in the entire world. How did this programming get into us, people? Well, let's look at how it happened. First, they took a black African man. Then they took a pregnant African woman and her young African male child. Then they used the same principle that they used in breaking a horse. That's how they broke the African. In other words, their view was, you see, that it's necessary to break a horse from one form of life to another form of life. In other words, you have to reduce them from their natural state in nature. It's understood that nature provides the horse with a natural capacity to take care of their offspring, but not only the horse. Nature also provides the black parent or any parent with a natural instinct to take care of their offspring. So we have to break the natural sting of dependence upon the strong black male within the African family. You see, brothers and sisters, and look at the person next to you and say it's all about money. That's what we're talking about, the economic status of the slaveholders. They wanted to perpetuate their economic security. It's always been about money. So to be sure that their future generations would see the necessity of maintaining Africans in an unnatural state, Europeans held the view that the horse and the African are no good to the economy unless they're broken. For the sake of an orderly future, notice I'm saying an orderly future, special and particular attention must be paid to the female. Did y'all hear what I said? Special and particular attention must be paid to the female and the youngest offspring. Both must be crossbred to produce a variety of division and labor. Both must be taught to respond to a particular new language. Psychological and physical instruction of containment had to be created for both. You see, it goes this way. A wild horse, this is how the white man had this thing, and this is the late great Frederick Douglass put this together. A wild horse, or a wild or natural African, in the mind of the slaveholder was dangerous. Even if they were captured, they were dangerous. For why was that? Because they still had the tendency to seek their customary freedom. And in the process of seeking their freedom, a horse in its natural state or an African in its natural state would kill that slaveholder. So therefore, to ensure their safety, both had to be broken. They felt that we can't rest. We dare not sleep, because they sleep while you're awake, and while you're awake, they're asleep. So these Africans are dangerous near the family house. And it's too much labor to watch them away from the house, and you can't get them to work in their natural state because they want to be free. That's natural, y'all, to want to be free. Something's really wrong when you got an African who does not want to be free. And yet I see so many of ours today who don't want to be free because they're comfortable on the plantation. They don't want to be free. So, how does this breaking take place? The whole purpose of breaking the African was for the sake of taking the body and messing up the mind. Did y'all hear that? Break the will to resist. Break it. Now the breaking process, again, according to the slaveholder, was the same for the African as it was for the horse. Same process. In other words, this thing is so deep how they go. It actually says, you must keep your eye and thoughts on the female. Sisters, you got to understand how important your role is. Their agenda was keep your eye on the black female and on the offspring of the horse and the female. Pay little attention to the generation of the original breaking. In other words, those first few people that you broke, don't pay them no mind. Your goal is on future generations. Therefore, if you break the female mother, this is Willie Lynch's concept, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. Did y'all hear that? If you break the female mother, she will break her own offspring. in the early years of its development until it's old enough to work. And when it is old enough to work, she will deliver her own offspring up to the slaveholder. Because her normal female protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. It goes on to say, for example, take the wild stud horse, a female horse, and an already infant horse, and compare the process with two captured African males in their natural state. Now check this out. This is going to make you a little angry. Two African males in their natural state, a pregnant African woman with her infant offspring. It goes on to say, breed the mare and the stud until you have a desired offspring. Then you can turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train the female horse where she will eat out of your hand. And she in turn will train her infant horse to eat out of your hand also. When it comes to breaking the uncivilized African, use the same process, but vary the degree and step up the pressure so as to do a complete reversal of mind. Check this what they did. Take the meanest and most restless African. Y'all see this in your head now. Take the meanest and most restless African, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male Africans. And the females and the African infants. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a different horse, faced in opposite directions. Set him afire and beat both horses to pull him apart in front of the other Africans while they're looking at him. The next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining African males to the point of death in front of the females. Y'all hear this? Don't kill them though, but put the fear of God in them. Now I wonder what God is talking about. For don't kill them because they can be, it says here, they can be useful for future breeding. The breaking process of the African woman. Take the African female, check this out now, and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires. White man. Test her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. All right. Y'all hear this? The black female is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract the last bit of resistance out of her. Take care not to kill her. For in doing so, you spoil good economics. When she is in complete submission, she will train her own offspring in their early years to submit to you when they become of age. Understanding is the best thing. Therefore, we shall go deeper into this area of the subject matter concerning what we have produced here in this breaking process of the African female. It gets deep here, y'all, because it says, at this point, we have now reversed the relationship. Now, see what has happened. They have taken the strong black African male and totally destroyed his image. While the women and children were watching. So now in the back of the woman's mind, black men, you can't protect us. Y'all follow this thing? You are not in the position to look after us. That's what's happening here. So in her, see, here it goes and say, in her natural state, she would have a strong dependency on that African man. I better say that again, since we are so unnaturalized now. In her natural state, the black woman would have a strong dependency on that black African man. Whew, man. And it goes on to say, and she would raise her offspring to be dependent like she is. So in the natural state of the African, the woman and the child was very dependent on the strong African man. Do y'all see what I'm saying? Yes. It goes on to say, nature provided for this type of balance. And then it goes on to notice what he says. He says, but we reversed nature. I need to go for a walk on that one, but But we reversed nature by burning and pulling a civilized African apart and bullwhipping the others in front of them to the point of death. All in her presence. We reversed what is natural. We got rid of her natural tendency to depend upon her man. We got rid of that. And God knows they did a good job. Because it's something real sick when a black woman can say to a black man, I don't need you. Only thing I need you for is. And if you don't do that too well, I don't need you at all. Y'all know, don't y'all get deep on me. Y'all know we talk like that. No, we talk like that. Check out what it goes on to say. It says, by being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed, the ordeal causes her to move from her psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reversed roles. Y'all hear this? What are the results? It goes on to say, and this is what you call social engineering, brothers and sisters. Here's what it says. What are the results? You've got the African woman out front and the African man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation for us to have sound sleep and economics. Before the breaking process, we had to be on alert and on guard at all times. Check this out now. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear, his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her early slave molding process. He's a good tool, now ready to be tied to a horse at a tender age. And by the time the African boy reaches the age of 16, he is broken in and ready for a long life of sound and efficient work and the reproduction of a good unit labor force. Oh, brothers and sisters, it gets even deeper than that. It says, through breaking the uncivilized, savage Africans. By the way, I put the word Africans in here, because every time I say the word Africans, the word they had was niggers. Follow what I'm saying? So you can kind of hear it better if you put that in there. Through breaking the uncivilized, savage Africans by throwing the African female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, and then I got this underscored, by killing off the protective male image. I got to repeat that again. By killing off the protective male image, by killing off the protective male image, and by creating a submissive, dependent mind of the African male slave, we have created a cycle that will turn on its own axis unless, it actually says right in the document, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the male and female slaves. What would be that phenomenon? The truth of our African awareness rising up, the truth that they intentionally stole and hid. If we could ever go back and reclaim our story and put back in the psyche of our young people how great we as Africans are, that would be the phenomenon that would reverse their program. Talks about the Negro marriage unit. Goes on to say, here's what we must do. We must breed 2 African males with 2 African females. Then take the African male away. Even though this is way back in the 1700s, people, it's still happening today. Breed them, make them have children, and then remove the African male from them and keep them moving and working. Let's say one African female bears an African female child and the other bears an African male. Both African females being without the influence of the African male will raise their offspring in a frozen, independent psychological state. Y'all hear this? They will raise their offspring into reverse positions. The one with the female offspring will teach her daughter to be like herself, independent and distrustful of the ability of the black male to be strong and protective. And the one with the male offspring will raise her son to be frozen and in subconscious fear for his life. Will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak but physically strong. And God knows we got a problem, because I see more brothers walking around pumping iron and ain't got good sense up here. You're a brute and you have no intellect. The system addresses that, because why is it that we have weight rooms like crazy in our prisons? And if they do have a library, it ain't much bigger than a cubicle. Then it goes on to say, this is what we call good, sound, long-range, comprehensive planning. Look at the person next to you and say, they think way down the road. In fact, let's look back at them one more time and say, they think way, way down the road. You must understand this, brothers and sisters. See, it's hard for many of us to comprehend that because we're trying to get to the end of the week. Many of us don't even know how you're going to pay your bills in the next couple of weeks. You understand what I'm saying? So it's hard for us to even think that far in advance. But we're talking about people who have done some long-range planning here. Then it goes on to say, our experts. Now, what does that mean? That literally means that they have people who are psychologists, who are actually full-time engaged in engineering a society that will end up unproductive like many people are today due to their program. Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomena taking place, of their roles being put back in its proper place, meaning somebody would come along and teach the truth and bring liberation. So our experts warned us that this might happen, because they said that the mind has a strong drive to correct itself. Did y'all hear that? And it goes on to say, if over a period of time these Africans can get in touch with some substantial original historical base, right. Good God Almighty, right. They could reverse the process. Again, they don't want us to get connected to our history. So the only way to keep you from getting connected to your history is to make up one and teach that one to you as though it literally existed. And once again, brothers and sisters, I hate to painfully put this on you, but I got to set you free. The first book they use is this one right here, the Bible. And many of you think that this is a history book, and there's not one event mentioned in the Bible that can be verified as an historical event. Not one. Not one person mentioned in the Bible can be verified as a person who ever walked this planet. Not one. From Adam all the way to John on the Isle of Patmos. All of them. I know I'm shouting some of you, but I got to shatter you. I got to shatter you. Got to deactivate that. Thank you. Got to deactivate that Willie chip. Because as long as you're putting your faith in a concept that the white man gave you, your chip is running on nuclear power. There's so much here in this thing that I can share with you. You got the gist of it. Let me go to their controlled language thing here. Crossbreeding is a major part of there, and God knows it's happening. You can look around us. You know, their whole agenda behind crossbreeding, and once again, I say it to you, brothers and sisters, until you understand their agenda of crossbreeding, until you understand it. In fact, check this out. I got to find this point in here. I'm rushing on, but I got to find this point. Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon happening. This creation of multiplicity of phenomena of illusions entails the principle of crossbreeding the African, as we stated above, the purpose of which is to create, check this out, to create a diversified division among them, thereby creating different levels of labor and different values. Good God Almighty. Let's understand this. It goes like, crossbreeding a horse means taking a horse and breeding it with an ass. The result is you get a dumb, backward ass, long-headed mule that is not reproductive or productive by itself. Forgive me, I'm just reading their document here. Now check out what it says. Check out what it says. He says, crossbreeding Africans, check this out. Crossbreeding Africans means taking so many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many African women as possible, varying the drops by the various tone that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until another cycle of color appears as you desire. Y'all hear this? Y'all got, see, you got to understand their agenda behind intermarrying, interracial marrying. See, for many of us, it's a step up because we feel so low about ourselves. But for them, it's carrying out an agenda. This stuff is deep, brothers and sisters. It goes on to say, what this means is this. Put the Africans and the horse in a breeding pot. Mix some asses and some good white blood, and what do you get? You got a multiplicities of colors of ASS backwards, unusual Africans running tied to a backward ASS long-headed mule. The one productive of itself and the other sterile. This is some deep stuff. In other words, total confusion. We got children coming up now don't know what they are. And that's a part of their agenda, because you got to understand, brothers and sisters, as I told you, in the 14th, 15th, 16th century, when the Europeans began to circumnavigate the globe, they realized that everywhere they went, they saw people of color. And the only way that they could survive, I mean, you're talking less than 10% of the world's population here, and the only way that they could survive was to get their genes into some of these colored folk. So the bottom line is, when the children come out, you have what's called a raceless society. What are you? Are you black or are you white? Are you African or are you European? Which one? A raceless society. That's what we're dealing with here. And that's by design. Crossbreeding completed. Now it says the next thing we do is we must completely annihilate their mother tongue. Oh, it says it right here in the document. It says, you know, language is a peculiar institution. It leads to the heart of a people. The more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of that society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of the country, to the extent that he knows the body of the language, to that extent is the country vulnerable to attack by him, because he knows how to communicate on the enemy's level. Y'all see this? So it says that you must take the slave and teach him about your language. I'm sorry, you can't teach him about your language, for then he will know all of your secrets. And then he'll no longer be a slave. You can't fool him any longer. And check this out. This is very important. It says, and being a fool is one of the basic ingredients in the maintenance of slavery. Look at the person next to you and say, don't you be no fool. In other words, if they don't understand your language, you can go up to a slave and say, we got to get our crops out. And because they don't understand the language, the phrase our crops means nothing to the slave. But now if he understands your language and you say our crops, he knows that when you say our crops, you don't mean him too. So therefore, once he understands that you don't really mean him too included in the our crops thing, then you're going to have a problem with your crops. So they must never allow the slave to develop to the level of being able to relate on that communicative level. How do we deactivate the Willie chip? Let me run through this right quick. Time's just about out here. Number one, you must understand the European program of breaking the African man and woman and making them a slave. I just went through with you. Number two, everybody say this. We must admit and accept the reality that we've been programmed. That's the second thing you must do, people. You must stop lying to yourself. Any black man or woman who refuses to admit to the truth that they have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, lied to, misled, any one of you who refuse to admit that, you are dangerous to the rest of us. Did y'all hear what I said? The Europeans knew that their treatment would have a devastating effect upon the African family. Although they probably didn't know how long the effect would last, they knew it would have an effect on us, and God knows it has had an effect on us, because not only have they messed with us, they have messed with us so bad that we now mess with each other. Like I said in the previous message, I can understand the white man laughing at us when we give homage to our ancestors. I can understand them laughing because they can't relate to that. What I don't understand is, how did they get us to laugh at each other? That's what I don't understand. The greatest deception and psychological hoax in history was executed by Europeans upon Africans. We must admit and accept the truth that this happened to us. Then we must move toward ensuring that it doesn't continue. Okay, y'all got that? Admit the reality. Yes, okay, you fooled me. See, I have this motto. This motto says this, and I kind of live by this. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you, because you shouldn't have did that. But if you get around to doing it the second time, then that's my fault, because I should have had you in check from the first time. You understand what I'm saying? And when you look at the history of these people and what they have done in their interaction to us, how can you trust? You've got to be out your mind. You've got to be out your mind. I went to see this movie the other day called, oh Lord, oh God, work here, Changing Lanes. Go see it. Here we have a movie that tells you how white folk are by nature. Just go see the movie and watch how this white boy carries on in this movie. And every now and then he'd get convicted over the stuff he did, but he was only doing what came natural to him. Go check it out. You'll see what I'm saying. And in the movie, Sam Jackson kept trying to do the right thing. I said, look at us. That's how we are. We just keep trying to do the right thing anyhow. And here's this guy, you know, go see it. Third thing, look at the person next to you and say, you must understand history. Many Africans do not realize the nature of the process of self and other destruction has taken place because they have not studied history in sufficient depth. You don't know our story. You only know what they want you to know. That's what you know. You go do your homework assignments on what they tell you to go read. Well, you got to bring in a book report on what subject they chose for you to do a book report on. And by the time you finish doing your assignments that they assign you, school is out. Let me explain something to you, brothers and sisters. Take 20 years plus of classroom time doing their assignments till you have your postgraduate degree in what they want you to know. And then come to the painful reality that all this time I've been lied to. All this time I've been researching the lie that they fabricated. That's a painful awakening. It's an awakening that makes you angry. It's an awakening that makes you want to pick up something and hit something. And then you come to the reality that just by picking up a book, such as The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams, where you don't have to enroll in college to read this, and you learn more from this one book about who you are and who we are and what they did to us and why we are in the condition we're in from that one book than you learn in your 20 plus years in a classroom. That does something to you. Buddy, before we can progress, before we can deactivate our Willie chip, we must reconnect with reclaim our story. You see, brothers and sisters, it is virtually impossible to understand a people simply by relying on your personal experiences or by the media for clarification, because the media is designed to keep you where you are. We African people will never deactivate our Willie chip, nor will we ever find ourselves looking to the religious and philosophical system given to us by our white oppressor. I want to repeat that for you. We African people will never, ever deactivate our Willie chip. Nor will we ever find ourselves as long as we keep looking to the religious and philosophical programs given to us by the white man. Now, can I make it a little bit more raw for you? No, time. Tape still running a little bit. Let me get it on here before tape stop. As long as you keep thinking you are a Christian, you ain't gonna deactivate your Willie chip. As long as you keep thinking you are a Muslim, you ain't gonna deactivate your Willie chip. And until you get this stuff out your head that you a Hebrew Israelite, you sure enough ain't gonna deactivate your Willie chip. Because all of it is still given to us by them. Now, when you come to the reality that all that is a lie given to us by them, and you begin to go beyond that, back to your ancient African past, and realize that you are a black African, and you get back in touch with African spirituality, then you'll begin to deactivate your Willie chip. Child, did you hear what he said? I hope you did. Because see, I have to keep dealing with activated Willie chips. Yeah. Sometimes I have to pray real hard when I listen to your Willie chips talking. Some of you got several of them in your head. Not just one. You got 3 or 4 of them fit up in there. 4. We really conclude this thing is we must get and maintain control of our own institutions. If we're going to ever control ourselves, our future, we must control our basic institutions, and I mean starting with the church. I'm going to be honest with you. The black church is the black church in attendance, but it ain't really ours. Or we might own the property, but the black church ain't really our institution. Because in most black churches, you'll see a white, blue-eyed, blonde-haired guy with his picture up somewhere. It's not really ours. It's just another slave house with slaves carrying out the agenda of the slave holder. So, look at the person next to you and say, it's time to deactivate the Willie chip. Some of you sitting up in here, you have deactivated your Willie chip. Sure you have. Some of you in here, you know about the Willie chip program, but you haven't deactivated it yet. It's time now, brothers and sisters, to deactivate our Willie chip so that we can heal our people. You cannot lead your brother or your sister into liberation as long as you are still blind. Because both of y'all will fall into a ditch. And the ditch that they have dug for us is for us to never return again. Ashe.